Hi everyone, it's Sayla here. Welcome to my art journey. On today's video, I am packing up my supplies as I'm going to take you on a mini adventure. I have been enjoying staying cozy in my flat, painting, but I do love going out and about and painting and finding inspiration from the outdoors. It hasn't really been possible as it has been a very, very cold winter. Don't be fooled by the blue skies. We've had temperatures below zero quite a few days. So as you can imagine, that makes it quite difficult to sit outside and paint for a long period of time. But in the past, I have taken all my art supplies into the National Museum of Scotland, and I've always had a really good time finding loads of inspiration. So I thought I would take you with me today. I totally recommend anybody that comes to Edinburgh to go and see the museum, as there is something for everyone. Whether you're an artist or you're interested in history, science, communications, transport, there is a bit of everything. And if you're like me and you like painting, of course you will find loads of inspiration. If you're traveling with someone and they want to get lost in the museum, you do have a lot of things to see. You could literally spend the whole day, but my recommendation for here is if it's cold outside, is wet, or it's miserable, then you will definitely have a lot to see and find inspiration. The museum is located in the old town, and if you're staying within the city centre, it's within walking distance. And of course, like any painted adventure, it wouldn't be a full adventure without a coffee stop. So I tried to not to find I wanted to find inspiration from somewhere other than the animal section, but I guess it is what I like, and I ended up there. So here I'm setting up my travel kit, which I will be making a video in the future about this because you can't really see very well. I am still working out where to position the camera and how to do things. And I was a little bit nervous about painting, not about painting, but about setting up my camera out to record myself. You guessed it, that is my subject, a polar bear. Because of course, I would never be able to sit in front of a polar bear while they're posing for me. And this was the perfect opportunity to sketch one from real life-ish. So here I am starting with my sketch, which I realized later that the position of the camera wasn't perfect. So sorry about that. I'm not really able to show you this part very well because my footage wasn't all that great. And I only realized when I had already done the sketch and even put some paint down. As you can see here, my travel setup has a little container to put the water and everything. It's contained within one thing. I decided to sit down for the purpose of recording the video, but with this you really don't need to. You can definitely be standing. Your hands might get tired and you might need to swap or just stop for a little bit, but otherwise this is a pretty self-contained kit. So I decided to use the buff titanium to tackle the polar bear, as I thought it would be quite helpful to distinguish the polar bear from the background of my sketchbook. And as you can see, when I did realize that the footage was terrible, I decided just to completely discard it. So you have missed the first part of the video where I'm doing my base layer. But here I have done my buff titanium layer and just added a little bit of shadow color mixed with burnt sienna and French ultramarine. So yes, buff titanium, French ultramarine, and burnt sienna are the colors that I use for this painting. And here I'm just mixing my shadow color. And as soon as I started applying it, I realized that it was quite dark. But of course, watercolor dries a lot lighter, and also you can do some lifting up. And right now is obviously a huge contrast because the rest of the polar bear is still pretty light. And in here you can see that with a better perspective. But of course you need to add some shadows because the polar bear is not purely white, and in order to be able to show the muscles and the legs, I'm just giving some texture by adding thin lines, recreating the fur. I would say this is still part of the ugly face of the painting because I haven't added all the shadows all around. I concentrated quite a lot in the bottom section. So there is a big difference between the back of the polar bear and the bottom section. It pretty much looks like it has been in mud. I think one thing I realized when I was painting is that I was enjoying myself too much, and I didn't actually notice that the camera wasn't positioned very well. And to be completely honest, I'm not all that mad about it because, hello Thistle, the main reason for me to create this channel is for my enjoyment. So as long as I'm enjoying it, that's the most important part. And here I'm starting to add the shadows on the back. And as you can see, it doesn't look as contrasting anymore, but I do go and do some wet and wet to be, and then some lifting up of the color, because I did think in the end that it was still too dark, even though I had added the shadows on the back. I have to say, overall, I was very happy with the final composition of the polar bear, but the mouth, I found it quite difficult because, from my perspective, it looked pretty dark, but you were able to see the teeth, I don't know if they're called teeth anyway, of the polar bear. But when I added the darker colors, then I realized that I wasn't able to paint the teeth and for them to be able to be seen. So that was the only section that I didn't quite like. I even tried to go in with some ink, but it didn't really work. But that's okay. I can come back because this polar bear doesn't bite. As I said to my friend, it had a fake smile, And then she said to me, don't they always have fake smile? And I thought, you know what, you're right. Anyway, and here I'm just basically adding the foreground so that the polar bear isn't just floating in the sketchbook. This is quite dark, but I do some lifting up. But of course it has to get grounded. And then I'm just going back around the feet to add some shadow area directly below where the feet are. I think overall it was a really good experience. I definitely enjoy it. And this is the final result. And my moose sitting right in front of me. I saw this wallpaper when I came in and it really caught my eye. So I decided to come back and sit down and recreate it. But I was sitting in a very dark area and so I didn't stay here for very long. I made this very sketchy. And if you are wondering if I am sitting on the ground, yes I am. I wanted to have my camera to record this section as well. So the only way to do that was to sit in the ground. So I did that. I was worried that somebody was going to tell me something, but there was some people that worked at the museum that walked by and they never said anything, so that's fine. The one thing that really caught my eyes with this was the contrasting colors of the yellow and the reds. For some reason, it's not a combination that I normally use, but how it was used with the details and the overall composition, I really liked it. And I liked it so much that while I was sitting on the ground here before I left, I decided to do a bigger sketch of the bee, and that is going to be next week's video. So if you're interested, come back next week for that. And here I'm not copying the details stroke for stroke, but I'm just trying to get the impression of what I can see. I am making some leaves that definitely don't match with what you can see on the wall, but I just wanted to get the general idea of the design and then give it a little bit more detail in the bigger version. So when I got home, I added some ink to the bees. And this was the sketch that I was talking about. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you give it a like, subscribe and give me a comment, and I'll see you next week.